Hello, and welcome to Dada. While as a literary and artistic movement, Dada has been with me for years due to one of its founders, Tristan Tzara's similar Romanian immigrant background, this is the first time I've delved into the Dada Magazine's pages, and it's been like rediscovering the movement all over again. Before taking a closer look at the magazine, I want to explore three background elements relevant to its inventiveness. The first is concrete poetry, as seen in Lewis Carroll, a devotee of literary nonsense, Stéphane Mallarmé, a symbolist poet and synesthete, and Guillaume Apollinaire, a cubist poet who applied to his verses Picasso's innovations in collage, free composition, and simultaneity. Even more immediately, the artistic movement of futurism, which praised youth, speed, noise, dynamism, technology, and war, while revolutionizing graphic design through the use of what its founder, F.T. Marinetti, called words and freedom, applied for the first time in Sanctum Tum. Words and freedom were characterized by onomatopoeia, majestic arrangement, and non-linear typography that jumbles together typefaces and sizes across the page without a clear axis or hierarchy in the layout, initially in order to evoke the ecstatic experience of war. A second influence on the Dada magazine was the personality of its main editor, the Jewish Romanian poet Tristan Tzara, who, at the age of 16, had edited a Romanian magazine called The Symbol, considered avant-garde for its opposition to the neo-romantic, ethno-nationalist, and anti-Semitic cultural atmosphere prevalent in Romania at the time. Notably, this magazine's illustrator, Marcel Iancu, would also contribute illustrations to the Dada magazine. The third influence was the Dada movement itself. 2 years into the First World War, in neutral Zurich, the German poets Hugo Ball and Emmy Hennings founded the Cabaret Voltaire, an artistic nightclub and gallery. The devastation and brutality of the war had brought an end to the 19th century idea of infinite progress through bourgeois rationality and Western culture, and the cabaret, in which the recently arrived Tzara and Iancu, as well as the Alsatian-Lorrainian visual artist and poet Jean Arp participated, celebrated this end, featuring performances of simultaneous poetry, nonsense poetry, and random pranks, while displaying an eclectic mix of artworks from budding and established artists. The cabaret started a movement that put itself on the side of chance, irrationality, anarchy, and internationalism, and against not just the war and Western culture, but the very idea of a revolutionary artistic movement founded on a program, such as had been Futurism, which, up to that point, had published more than 10 manifestos and been pro-war. With the closure of the cabaret, Ball produced a one-issue magazine entitled Cabaret Voltaire and subtitled A Collection of Artistic and Literary Contributions. Publicizing the intentionally meaningless name Dada for the first time, this magazine, which included works by Picasso, Apollinaire, and Marinetti, was meant as a documentary anthology of the group's collective efforts. Unlike Dada's performances, however, it was aesthetically conservative, maintaining consistent typeface, size, page layout, and separation between text, artwork, and advertisements. Now, the Dada magazine was initially meant to continue the Cabaret Voltaire in promoting Dada to like-minded artists, writers, and other magazine editors across national borders in a time when war and travel limitations prevented visits to exhibitions. With Tzara as its principal editor and the graphic artist Jean Arp, to a certain point Marcel Iancu, and later Francis Pacabia in secondary roles, the Dada magazine was most characterized by inconsistency, namely in cover design, the presence or absence of a cover, size, color, page count, orientation, contributors, its publishing location and publishing intervals, and even its name. The first two issues of Dada, editorially unsigned, follow in Cabaret Voltaire's footsteps. Like their predecessor, Dada 1 and Dada 2 are subtitled, albeit now in French, Literary and Artistic Collection, have reddish covers which feature a woodcut. Their title is in the Cabaret Voltaire typeface, and they are conservative in the graphic design. Nonetheless, Dada 1 and Dada 2 embryonically accomplish the magazine's mission. There are works in French and Italian, neither of which are the language spoken in Zurich and can therefore evade or trick censorship across borders. The works are from Germany, Italy, and France, by cubists, futurists, and expressionists, and by other magazine editors such as Enrico Prampolini, the editor of Noi in Rome, and Pierre-Albert Biraud, the editor of Sick in Paris. While between Dada 1 and Dada 2, the Russian Revolution had taken place, between Dada 2 and Dada 3, the German Revolution had begun. In line with the revolutionary spirit of the times, Dada 3 and its successor, now bearing Tzara's editorial signature, reinvent magazine design. Lacking the reddish cover but with a red title evoking it, printed on cheap newspaper stock and true to Tzara's manifesto, which opens the issue, every page of Dada 3 explodes. Texts appear diagonally and perpendicular to one another, inverted horizontally or vertically, on the cover even overprinted, in a multiplicity of typefaces, sizes, and weights, accompanied by printer's marks and ignoring all typographic order. To this, Anthologie Dada adds the use of stock in 5 different colors, and on one page, a red line which directly addresses the reader. While most of these experiments had already been performed by other avant-gardists, they were bracketed. Dada 3 and Anthologie Dada, on the other hand, mix text, artwork, and advertising on the same page, blurring the lines between them and implicitly asking the reader to rotate the magazine and readjust their expectations. Only so can they decipher whether a word belongs to a poem, a caption, a title, an advert, a signature, or an homage. The line is also blurred formally, some of these techniques being borrowed from newspaper advertising. Notable and innovative is also the use of chance in distorting conventions, made evident in moments of overprinting. With Dada 3 and Anthologie Dada, the magazine's mission was fulfilled. The haphazard breaking of typographical norms vividly evokes the chaotic, anarchic atmosphere of the original cabaret, while also spitting in the face of the clarity and readability required by military communication. Collage is here brought to bear on graphic design itself, successfully communicating the polycentric, open-ended, internationalist nature of the Dada movement. Finally, these issues' reliance on the reader's participation could be said to encourage the magazine's target audience of artists and writers to contribute to future issues. And so they did. Francis Picabia, the editor of the New York-based 391, and the 3 editors of the Paris-based Littérature, including André Breton, became main contributors to the Dada magazine, among others. During the production of Anthologie Dada, the magazine's printer, Julius Herberger, was jailed for anarchist activities. A few months later, the Treaty of Versailles was signed, and World War I officially ended. Tzara, Arp, and Picabia relocated to Paris, from where 2 of the last 3 issues of Dada were published, all 3 relatively short, between 4 and 8 pages. While Bulletin Dada maintains the experiments of its predecessors, the last 2 issues, Dada Phone and Dada in Trio, as if mirroring the first 2 issues in anticipation of the magazine's end, return to conventional typographical design. 2 novelties are nonetheless introduced. The last 3 issues no longer announce Tzara as editor, Bulletin Dada stating instead that the entire world is the director of the Dada movement, and Dada in Trio opens left to right and bears a title that's vertically and horizontally inverted every second line, both gestures that demand the reader's active engagement. The Dada magazine's influence, specifically from Dada 3 on, is layered. Most directly, it influenced the design of the magazines edited by contributors and fellow Dadaists. Raoul Hausmann's Terre Dada, Marcel Duchamp and Man Ray's New York Dada, Carl Schwitter's Mertz, and Theo van Duisburg's Meccano. More indirectly, through Hausmann and Breton and its emphasis on the irrational and use of satire, the Dada magazine also influenced the larger artistic movements of surrealism and new objectivity. Finally, by calling attention to the frame through which we look and read, inviting the reader's participation in constructing the text and blurring boundaries between different artistic media, as well as between art and commerce, the Dada magazine planted the seeds of postmodernism. Its influence can be felt in Nouveau Realisme, Situationism, pop art, and finally in punk, and through it, pop culture. Thank you.